So, welcome to the Slice of Time Street Photography podcast. Today I'm joined by, I'm going to try to pronounce this as correctly as possible, Michael Eugster, a street photographer from Zurich, Switzerland. And his work stood out for me because he has very candid moments, but still also very well composed moments. So I like the combination of the two. So, hey, Michael, could you perhaps introduce yourself for a second?
Hi, Fred. So, first of all, thanks a lot for inviting me. It's a great pleasure to be here in the show and be part of it. Was listening to your podcast since a couple of months, and definitely super interesting guests, and nice to be amongst these guests. Yeah. So, um, as you said, I'm from Zurich, Switzerland. That's the German part of Switzerland, the largest city in Switzerland. Obviously, a good thing for street photography. So there is quite some things going on in Zurich. Um, I am in the field of photography and street photography since 2021. Started in 20 and then slightly shifted into street photography. First tried out a couple of other genres within the field of photography, but figured out that street photography is definitely the thing I like the most, and step by step went into that direction. So that's where I found myself then after a while, soaking up everything about street photography. And exactly. So, yeah, that's the past couple of years what I did. And it's, of course, a lot of fun, and I really enjoy the whole process about street photography and the community and everything around it. So it's not only the picture itself or the process of taking the photos, but also like the whole kind of scene and everything together.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, and you mentioned it already that you tried different um, genres of photography and then slowly went into street photography. Is it kind of like I'm gonna ask, like, do you see yourself as a street photographer and it's like closed off, or do you still see yourself as like a photographer and you do also, I don't know if you did like landscape or architecture or what you did before. Is that like a very closed off niche you see yourself in them, or genre?
Yeah, no, I definitely see myself probably in. I mean, there's a lot of like discussion also about is it what street photography, the type of photographers who do street photography, but I think it matches what we do pretty well. So I'm 100% doing that, nothing else. I'm also pretty dogmatic in that regards, not only in regards of photography, but also in other things in life. So when I do something, I really do it 100%, and I really want to do it as pure as possible, and only that particular type of thing very intensively. So I really dedicate my all my free time. Of course, there are other things in my life, as my family and so on, but as much as possible to street photography, going out as much as possible. I mean that also kind of had an impact on my work life. After like 20 years of corporate jobs, I made myself self-employed, what gave me the opportunity to have more flexibility to go out more to shoot. Of course, that was not the only reason, but it was one of the elements I took into consideration to move into self-employment, that I'm just able to do more photography and do more my kind of my vision, how to grow, develop, and build up a portfolio and so on. So I would definitely see myself as street photographer, to answer your question, and only doing that, so nothing else.
Okay.
And
So the freelance work you do is not photography related at all. It's
no,
just
it's not. No, no, no. It's like HR, so typical corporate stuff, and also one-on-one coaching, stuff like that. So very people-focused topics.
as
Um,
well then. Yeah, okay, so
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
kind of yeah, it's because your street photography is also very people focused, so
Yeah,
it's
yeah, definitely. I think it's not a surprise that I probably find myself in street photography because I'm definitely someone who is very interested in people. Uh, uh, I heard a lot of street photography talking about they're quite introvert, but I would say I'm more the extrovert person, and I like to talk to people. I approach people pretty easily. And I like to be in urban landscapes and observe. So that's the second thing. So people and observing people, noticing things, noticing people, noticing details. That's always something I was very interested in, even before I did photography. So I'm definitely someone with kind of open eyes, walking through life, and that helped me now in that particular thing what I'm doing right
that's
now. Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, it's fun to hear that because I've had a few introverts recently, so it's fun to hear an extrovert street photographer as well, maybe. And I'm curious. First of all, it's kind of like also location based. How the people in Zurich and maybe Switzerland in general are open to street photography, especially like to me, it's that's maybe a bit of a stereotype, but people in Switzerland are maybe more introverted and more closed off. So how does that work for you?
Yeah, it's definitely as you said. So Swiss people usually are reserved. They have a fear that people kind of approach if you approach them too closely, if you take their picture, they react pretty quickly. So what are you doing? Suspicious. What's going on? So it's not an easy environment, I would say. But I mean, that's how it is. These are the rules I need to work with. And of course, you, as everyone else within the genre, you're developing certain skills and certain techniques, how people probably not realize that you took their picture. And so it's not easy, definitely, compared to other locations. Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah, because all your photos they don't seem like you would have those issues, so that's really good on your part, of course, because that shows that you're very talented. So that's why I was asking. Also because I had that idea of, well, mostly it's said about Germany that it's very hard to photograph people, but I felt like Switzerland is very well. The German part is very culturally connected to Germany. So I was wondering about that part. And then you also mentioned the that you're a kind of dogmatic photographer. Um, do you have like very set rules for yourself then that you uh, really try to stay within, or
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, so I think what's always interesting for me and is that like discussion about there are different type of street photography, sub genres or however we want to call it, sub chapters. For example, there is like street portraits, asking people to take their portrait. Is that really street photography? Not Candid anymore. So that's where I probably would say, hey, it's not that really typical core street photography thing. And of course, you can expand that discussion also to other things like silhouette shots and so on, where I personally, for me, and of course, everything is absolutely fine, and you need to be happy what you are doing. But for me personally, I probably am more drawn to the, let's say, typical type of street photography, candid people. Of course, there can be some exceptions from time to time with no human being in a picture, and then of course also people like the front of the people, faces, like these are elements I really
yeah?
I'm drawn to, and I believe for me personally is that type of photography I want to do. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, yeah. Makes sense. Yeah, and because you were saying, I was wondering how fixed your set of rules to yourself was. So I was wondering about that. So, but indeed, as you said, there's a lot of subgenres in street photography. I also try to get them all in the podcast, like photographers from all those genres. But of course, there's always a discussion: is this still street photography or not? It's sometimes. I was actually just wondering about. I saw a photo of a person here in the city, a street photographer I know, and he made like photos of. There's like this light festival, and it's like, is that street photography or is it more event photography? And I think there's always about. Well, a lot of photos you can have the discussion: is it street photography? Is it event photography? Is it documentary photography? As you said, like street portraits, it's always I don't think street photography has like very set boundaries in itself, and it's important to cut your piece out and have yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's you got a good point here. There's so many different ways of expressing yourself with street photography, and that's the nice thing about it, right? That it really is not defined by one or a couple clear rules. So you have a wide range of things being creative and finding your own way how to do street photography, and that's nice. And but the way I see it for my personally, that at least at the moment, maybe I also develop into a specific direction in, I don't know, maybe a couple of years but at the moment, that's how what I understand personally about street photography. But that's the nice thing, that we have a broad range of different things. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. But for you, it's important that it's candid,
Yeah, totally.
yeah,
And I think in that respect, I would definitely go that far and say non-candid photography. So asking people is, in my point of view, not street photography. We can discuss about anything else, but it should really be candid. It should
yeah,
be kind of documenting life or capturing life as it happens. Right.
yeah. Makes sense. I'm actually thinking about doing more street portraits, but it's more because someone advised me to do it because it's helps you to become less shy when doing the candid stuff. So it's kind of like to me, it's gonna be more like a segue to the candidates. I still have to do it. I still have to build up the courage to actually ask someone. I saw some people last weekend, which I think, yeah. So I agree with. I wouldn't call those photos, I think, street photography. They would be street portraits, but not street photography, I think. But it's yeah. To me, it might become a segue to practice the um, practice approaching people more candidly. Then,
Yeah, no, good point. I think try it.
so
And people usually, I'm pretty sure, never tried it, never did it, but I would assume people usually are super happy if you approach them with a certain compliment and ask to take their picture. I would say 95% of people would say yes.
I'll
And
have to find out. Yeah.
good luck for that.
But it's also like last time I was like, oh, I should start doing it, but I had like a 28 millimeter on my camera, so I was like, it's not the best portrait lens, so I'm not gonna do it right now. So yeah, and so yeah, you said you were doing street photography for like 4 years, 5 years maybe now, and you do it very regularly, almost daily. I read. So is it really like become a part of your routine, or do you just like change it up every day, or how does that work for
Yeah,
you?
I really try to do it at least 6 times a week. Maybe there's here and there a day I'm not able to because I have to work or do something with the family. But at least the other 6 days, I try to go out. Some days it's like only 2 hours, and then other days.
Only 2 hours is already a lot, but okay. Yeah.
But I think you're having a good point about the routine thing, and that goes with everything else. I mean, the good example is going to the gym. If you go to the gym on a regular basis, it's kind of a routine, right? And then if you're not going, you miss something. And I think that also helps me to if I go out on a really regular basis. And it's funny. Usually, when I come home after a couple hours shooting outside, I really have enough for that moment. I really say, "Oh no, I'm tired now, and I want to go home. I have other things to do." But as soon as I'm at home, I again would like to go out as quickly as possible. So yeah. So that's clearly one thing about the routine thing. On the other hand, to be honest, I really believe in, if you want to get the interesting shots, the special shots, uh, like the special things happening in a specific scene, you need to be out as much as possible. Otherwise, you will not find these things. So it's really a number game. As more as you out, the higher the chances are that you're finding things. And as we often from everyone else who goes out, and you know that as well, often nothing happens. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I also read, and it's the same for me. You're not really a patient person. You stick around for like 2 or 3 minutes maybe. It's the same for me, and it's sometimes what I do is I hit the same place like 3 or 4 times in a day, because like it changes, and it's kind of my way of waiting for a scene, but then also just going around and seeing how it change. So you're also a very well, like the hunter and fisher thing. You're very much more of a hunter.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, there are certain corners in Zurich where I know the light is good, and there's a lot of people coming from various sides, and it's easy or more rewarding
Mm.
to get good pictures there. So there are places where I, from time to time, just stand there for a couple minutes. Also, I mean, you just cannot walk for hours and hours. Sometimes you need to stand still for a couple minutes. So that can happen, but I'm not the type of the fishing type of guy waiting in front of a nice wall as a background, and definitely not. No, I'm walking most of the time.
Okay. And so, like, talking about the routine again? So you have like a more or less fixed hourly routine, let's say, or like time wise. Do you also do like the same walks every day, or do you change it up, or how do you approach that side?
Yeah, so there are a couple of roads which are pretty crowded. And I do these roads, of course, every time I go out. But like the direction how I walk through these roads can vary. So sometimes I go this direction, sometimes the opposite. But it's like more or less the same area. And and sometimes, of course, that's also something I say to myself. Oh, you need to go to another area of the city. It's there are also interesting things maybe happening there. Maybe it's not that crowded, but it can also be interesting, give a bit more variety to my pictures. But I still stick then to the super crowded areas. So yeah. So I would say most of the time it's the same, like routes, as you said.
Yeah, and I mean it's. I can imagine. I've heard from other photographers as well that they enjoy their own city more than, for example, different cities. So maybe it's the same with like you have your set places, so to speak, or your area where you're focused in your city. I can imagine it also be like knowing a place can help you get better photos.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Definitely. I think it's super interesting if you know everything inside out, and you know where the light hits perfectly and at what particular time of the day. And you also start to realizing every small little change in the city. If there is something new placed somewhere, you immediately realize, oh, that wasn't there yesterday. But on the other hand, sometimes it's also, you know, I mean, if you're walking six days a week, the same city for a couple months, I'm also from time to time super happy if I can travel to another country, to another city, and have maybe a week somewhere else, and kind of freshing up my mind and see different things. And then I'm happy again to be back in Zurich. And so that's definitely something I need from time to time to break through
okay,
this kind of routine.
yeah,
Yeah.
and are there like cities you frequently visit, or do you try to change it up every time? For example, like, do you go like to London every 6 months or whatever, or is it more like a different city each time?
So I started going to New York on a regular basis.
Okay, cool.
Um, and so last year I was 3 times. The year before, and in May I will go again. So that's definitely something I super much enjoy. Being in Manhattan, and I mean obvious reasons, and of course we can go now into the discussion, but it was photographed so many times why you're going there, not to a different place. But to be honest, I just love the city, the rhythm. I feel connected to New York in a kind of a way. It's rewarding to take pictures there because there's so much happening. I just like it. I just love it to be there. It's just feels right. And I think that's super important if you're in a city and you feel connected to the city, and if you like where you are, enjoy the groove of the city. I think that's the basis of being ready to explore the city from a photography point of view. And then, of course, like Paris, London are super close. So maybe once a year in April, I will go to Istanbul the first time.
Cool.
Again, a
Yeah.
city which is probably done by a lot of street photographers, a lot, but still something I want to see. And yeah, let's see what I will find there.
It's very popular, yeah. But I think same with, as you said, like New York. There's a lot of photographers. Well, there's a lot of photographers there, but there's also a lot of photographers visiting. Same with, like, I think London, Paris, maybe less so.
Hmm.
Like the last 10 years or like decade, maybe it used to be very popular. But I think even then, it's like, as you said, with your own city, it changes every day. Especially those cities change so much. There's so many people passing through, living there. So I think there's always going to be like a new angle, and also the way you approach it will be different. So I think with those cities, it can still be fresh, yeah. So it's I don't. That's something I learned in London recently. It's not because it's overshot that it's. If you come with a new approach and you a new way of looking, I think it can be very different still. With every city actually, but it's also with especially with the bigger cities, I think. So do you have like a wish list still that you say, like, for example, Istanbul, that you say like that's a place?
Yeah, I mean, India must be super interesting because it's just so different. I was once in India, but that was way before I was interested in
Okay.
photography. And I just loved that experience there. It was so interesting, so different to what we know here from like Europe. So I would definitely love to take pictures there. I think Asia also. Um, Probably Japan is prominent in that regards, but I think there are a lot of also South America could be super interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you like, because for example in Switzerland the people are more reserved, as you said, and in New York or in especially London, I know people are very, they don't care about being photographed that much. Do you find that changing your style or way of working? Maybe do you notice that it changes you as well?
Yeah, that's a good question. To be honest, I don't think so. I'm just so used to my kind of approach techniques that I just continue doing it that
Mm.
particular way.
Because
Um,
it's so like a routine for you, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I'm not changing in regards how I take the pictures, how I approach people. Maybe I could, but to be honest, I also had in New York once or twice someone telling me, "Hey, did you took the picture? Did you took my picture? That's not okay. You should not do that." So it can happen also there, to be honest. But I think you're right. People are usually more open and they just don't care in those type of
Yeah.
cities.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in London they just don't notice, or they don't want to notice. Maybe I found. And then, as you said, you're like an extrovert. Do you sometimes, or do you often connect with the people you just photographed, or is it more like you take the picture and you disappear again?
Yeah, I'm more the second type of person. I never talk to people. No eye contact as good as possible, and taking the shot and disappearing. I'm really not interested to talk to people. Well, at least to not the people I
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I I understood what you
No,
were
no,
trying to say.
exactly. No, no, definitely not. Definitely. I think it's a nice thing if you are that much interested, and there are a lot of people. You also talked in your podcast to a couple of people who really intensively then talk to those people. But that's not something. I mean, I'm also very much in a kind of a flow in my like in my thing, and don't want to be disturbed, and having that kind of process being paused by start talking to people. And of course, it would be interesting, probably, having that conversation. But yeah.
No, but makes sense. Yeah, if you're in that flow, then it can be really stopping you if you stop for a talk, because you never know if it's like for 2 minutes or maybe 15 minutes, and then yeah, you're completely out of your flow.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a funny thing. Of course, in Zurich, I run from time to time into people I know, so not non-photographers, and then either you kind of try to escape that, or you want to continue taking photographs and not like interrupt your flow. But of course, sometimes you need to talk to them, and
yeah,
it's nice. But yeah, it happens pretty often, as Zurich
yeah,
is
yeah.
big. Yeah.
No, I can imagine. Yeah, that's actually very true. Um, that's yeah. And how do you? Is there like a way, because you do the same places so often, to keep it fresh to yourself, or is it just like because it's such a routine and a flow that it's always interesting to you?
No, it's definitely not always interesting. I mean, I often kind of struggle. Oh no, okay, let's go this direction. But and then I say to myself, but there is nothing happen. So I mean, it probably also has something to do with your constitution on that particular day. If you're positive thinking, if you're maybe a little bit more skeptical. But to be honest, I'm not always like, okay, super interested, and let's see here and there. Sometimes it's hard work, it's a struggle, but I still kind of manage to um, since today I still manage to be very optimistic about let's go out. I will find something today. Of course, I don't know exactly what, but I'm pretty optimistic that every walk, and I think that's the nice thing about street photography. You have no clue what's happening, but there is always the chance that you find something. And of course, in most cases, nothing, but from time to time, you get rewarded.
Yeah.
The nice thing about it, right?
Yeah, like now that you're mentioning this, I have two questions that kind of forks in different directions. Maybe the first one, which is maybe a shorter fork of the question, is like, don't you have like a massive photo library by now? Then, if you go out daily, or are you very um, conservative in shooting?
Yeah, I think probably a bit more on the conservative side. So usually it's, I would say, like 40 to 80 pictures per day.
Okay.
Yeah, for a couple hours. I don't know exactly if that's a lot or not, but I think it could
Yeah.
be more, could be less. And sometimes I walk for an hour and take one picture or two, and that's it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes photographers have like um, the reflex, let's say, like I have it, for example, to often make a photo, even if it's a bad one, just to
Mhm.
keep the well, your finger ready to trigger the photo, but also just to keep the momentum going. But I can imagine, yeah, if you shoot daily, then it's maybe a better idea to be slightly more conservative and not make photos of every I don't know, like graffiti wall or whatever,
Mhm.
just to stay focused. So that's a very interesting question. Now I forgot the other fork, because we were talking earlier about going out daily. Yeah. Anyway, I've still have several other questions as well. you, for example, well, you have a Substack, which we can dive in later as well. But you mentioned this thing called trigger themes, which are things you intuitively shoot, for example, subjects or specific scenes, and then paste them together afterwards. Is that something you're at home working your series, or is it more something that you just think like, oh, this can fit in there, and then it's done? Or how do you? Because you also work in series a lot. I saw on your website and your Substack.
Yeah, yeah. So there are, of course, certain topics I have in my mind, and if I go out and see something, I collect them. But it can happen, and most of the series also came out of that particular process. Then, when I'm editing the pictures, I maybe realize after a while, hey, I took in the past months couple shots of, I don't know, just pick anything, dogs. So maybe there will be an interesting series about dogs. And I try to put them, or at least dump them into the same folder. And maybe one day that will be a nice kind of like collection to put on my website or whatever. So they kind of emerge. They could emerge from realizing that I have connected pictures. And of course, I have them in my mind when I go out, and maybe that's also a little bit when you're out and nothing happens, but you at least you have like these topics in your mind. Keeps you kind of awake in a kind of a way,
Okay,
and
yeah.
you're still able to collect small little things. While the super interesting, super complex scenes don't happen, but at least it keeps you kind of motivated in a kind of a way, or yeah, you know what I mean.
Yeah, makes sense. So you sometimes like actively think about like I have this series going on. If I see some, like I might look for a bit more extra for, as you said, dogs or whatever. Yeah.
Right, right. Yeah. Usually, or I mean, these topics, these serious topics, I have them on my mind, and they I don't really go out and think about them. If I see something, I immediately realize that, oh, that's what I'm looking for actually. So
Yeah.
I know I mean I have at least 10 to 20 topics in my mind and try to collect them.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And then I found my question from earlier again. So as you said, like you would go out daily and sometimes feel, like sometimes you're more happy than other times, and sometimes you're more annoyed maybe. Do you notice in maybe how many photos you make, but also how those photos look, or maybe the topics? Do you like afterwards notice your emotional state, let's call it, in those photos? Is that something you see represented in them, or?
That's a good question. I don't think so. I mean, I think that I believe there is a correlation between how motivated or positive thinking, the daily constitution you're in, um, the impact it has all in the process of taking pictures, and maybe less the type of pictures you take. But there are days where I take much more pictures and days where I'm more conservative. So I thought about that already, and I don't have the answer. There are days where I'm just more kind of relaxed, more open, more taking more pictures, and other days I struggle and come home with only like 10. And I cannot answer why that's the case. Yeah, of course, there are certain like elements which have an influence. Good light, for example. If you have good light, you take more pictures. But there's also like a personal kind of constitution. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, it's as you said, like sometimes it's better light, or there's more things happening, or there's and in combination with how you feel. So it's probably not there's not one aspect that's it's very hard to approach it scientifically. Let's say,
absolutely.
or statistically. So it makes total sense. But it's I think it's interesting to think about it, especially since you have so many photo walks done by now that you could have. It's interesting that you don't have an answer. Let's say that, because it's yeah. And so I was also thinking, because I noticed that you're very active on Substack. Is there like a specific reason you like? Well, first of all, why do you publish your photos? That's always an interesting question, maybe. But also, why do you prefer Substack over, for example, Instagram or a blog or whatever? Because I noticed the past year there's been a big growth on Substack especially in regards of street photographers. So
Yeah. So first of all, I just wanted to try out something. That was in summer. I heard about it and thought I was never the writing type of guy, but I
really,
thought,
because you write really well. Because so
okay,
yeah,
thanks. No, definitely not. Of course, I have no issues with writing also during my work, past work experience. I was writing a lot, but it's not something I thought about doing as a hobby or something. But so I tried. I thought, let's try it. And so that's one thing. The tool itself, or the platform itself, it's really super easy. It's well made. You can do within very less effort, very less time input. You can do nice kind of texts, embedding pictures, super easy, super nice. It looks good, proper. So it's nice to work with Substack, I think. Of course, I also use the other platforms, Insta and so on. But I think Substack has another level of quality in regards of exchange of people, so how people react. Even if you think about, if you're posting a Substack article, and I'm usually spending, let's say, roughly 4 hours into an article, so it's quite some time, um, and and you get something back, I feel. So you see, you have a lot of statistics, of course, as these platforms offer you, but you see how many people are reading the article. And to be honest, I mean, if someone is reading your article, spending 5 minutes, that's a nice appreciation, I think. And usually also comments are a bit more than the Instagram comments. Nice shot, well
yeah,
done, whatever. So they really give you a feedback about your text. So another couple minutes providing their time for your work. So that's also something what is very nice. And then on the other hand, another reason why I think it was interesting for me, or is interesting for me, I think it's great to give something to the community. When I look back in my first 2-3 years, as I said at the very beginning, I was soaking up everything I found on the internet, every text, every YouTube video about street photography. I was super interested to learn from people who are doing it maybe for a couple of years already, just to figure out how things work and what I need to know. So maybe I can also give back something by sharing my thoughts, my approach, and so on. Connecting people with the interviews I post on Substack. So giving people the opportunity to show themselves. So I think it has a really lot of potential, and it's fun. Maybe I'm not doing it anymore in a year from now, but at the moment it's super nice, and it's fun, and it's a good addition when you're at home in the evening and you're not able to shoot, but still want to do something street photography related. And it also helps a lot to kind of write down thoughts, street photography related thoughts, my vision, my ideas, just to throw it out. Yeah.
yeah, I can agree. And it's also sometimes that you, or at least what I notice when I write down like these ideas, is that I sometimes make like thinking errors. It's like I was so sure of this idea, and now that I'm writing it, it's kind of falls apart to myself. So it's like I have to rethink this apparently, or it reinforces myself and like, yeah, I'm on the right path. So I totally agree with that. It's also something like I write down daily anyway. So what I've done and sometimes start with it. So I can say it does work very well. And I found it interesting that you mentioned like learning all these things via YouTube and on online stuff. Um, did you really like study it, or is it more like or how did you find the right content to grow your style? Because there's a lot of street photography content going in, like on YouTube alone, in all directions. So I think that's interesting, maybe to talk about how you approached learning street photography.
Yeah, I mean, at the very beginning, you don't know anything, right? You just know that, oh, street photography is super interesting. I like to do it when I'm in the city, and then you go home and just enter street photography on YouTube, for example, and then of course, million of videos pops up, and you start looking at them, and I think that's an own process of itself, figuring out what's out there, what type of the subgenres we were talking about, and then finding kind of your own voice in regards of what are you interested in. So, for example, at the very beginning, I remember I was looking at like these YouTube videos of the well-known guys, but maybe they're a bit more general photography. So you look at like maybe the broader photography videos, and then step by step you dive into that kind of rabbit hole with photography, and you're ending up in that particular um, uh, corner of street photography you're interested in. Right. I think
Yeah, and
that's
so
how it happens.
yeah, and it was mostly YouTube, or did you start like diving into photo books
Yeah,
or?
photo books as well. YouTube photo books, of course. Insta is has also a certain influence, of course.
That's cool, yeah, because it's to me like Instagram is can be very interesting, but at the same time there's so much that it's to me becomes hard to actually appreciate the photos. So for example, with Substack, because it's maybe it's yeah, if it grows, it might become less interesting again. But because it's like a self-filtered, let's call it, that it's maintainable. So
Yeah, I totally agree.
and same with YouTube to some regard, like there's a lot of videos, but it's still manageable in some regards, I think. But yeah,
Yeah, I think once you sorted out what type of street photography you're really interested in, maybe there's a handful of YouTube channels you really think interesting, and then and these are the channels or people I still consume, I still very much enjoy, but everything else I left behind. It was very important for my development, for my journey, but it's not anymore like what I'm looking for.
yeah, exactly. It's cool that you really made that conscious niching down. So it's that's very good. I think that's approach a lot of people can benefit from. Um, so um, so do you like when you study, for example, people on Instagram? Do you really like take the time to um, to study their like overall work? For example, when for these interviews, I always go to like the website or Instagram or Substack or whatever to see like your entire body of work, because often it gets more interesting than just one shot, or often, not always. Um, but it's sometimes on Instagram it's sometimes hard because you're more in the feed. Are you really like going to people's profiles and to their websites, or how do you?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think Instagram is still, of course, it's overwhelming. It's too much, but it's still a great source. And I definitely take a lot of inspiration from Instagram. And I also look at people's profile and study their portfolio and and maybe dive a bit deeper into one's work. Definitely, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Because yeah, to me it's hard on Instagram, but sometimes I can imagine it I'm more of a website kind of guy apparently. I
Yeah,
noticed.
I think so too. I think the website is definitely also. I also have like a folder on my Chrome browser where I like save all websites of street
Yeah,
photographers I'm interested in. So from time to time, I check their websites and see is there new stuff on it, or study a bit the work more. And I also believe that like recent street photographers are very interested to study not only like the past, the big names. Of course, they're also kind of
yeah,
super interesting and important to know the history, learn from them, study the books, and so on. But I really take a lot of inspiration from recent street photographers, and think there is a lot of very, very good work out there, and I enjoy that very much.
yeah. To me it's hard to study. For example, your work. It's like it's very interesting. I like it. I like how you think. But to me, it's like very hard to like emulate it then because it's so very candid and moment based. So it's hard to say like I will try that as well, but because it's that moment will never happen again. Which for like for example the silhouettes and the more like architectural compositional street photography, of course you can easily learn from those because it's repeatable in that sense or in some sense. So that's why I find it interesting that you still use, for example, Instagram for those study moments.
Yeah, but I think that's I don't know, but a lot of people, and for me that was definitely the case. That was as well part of the learning curve to start with silhouette shots, start with repeating shots of people I admire, and learning by repeating things and maybe also copying certain things, and then step by step finding out what you're really interested in or what your type of photography is. But that was needed during my journey, uh, and a big part of it to find my today's kind of
Yeah.
shots. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Good to hear. That's nice to hear. And then you mentioned like learning from the community and giving back to the community via your Substack, for example. I know you visit some street photography festivals and everything. Is that something you also, because you're an extrovert, of course, is that something you look for? Like for example, in Zurich, do you meet up with other photographers as well, um, or when traveling abroad?
Yeah, it's definitely something I'm interested in to exchange with other street photographers. On one hand, of course, as you said, the festivals are a very good opportunity because everyone is coming together at the same place during the same days, and you meet a lot of interesting people, build up relationships, and so on. So that's really a nice thing about these festivals. Um, and and definitely the reason to go there as well, one of the reasons for going in the future. And then in Zurich, um, there are a handful of people shooting here in Zurich, so of course I see them. We talk to each other. There's also kind of a small meetup. Don't go there often, from time to time, but it's always super interesting to having this exchange. On the other hand, when I go to a different city for a week, for example, I usually just want to shoot as much as possible. And of course, it would be nice to have interaction with other people, but and if happens, it happens. And I also met other people while I was shooting outside. Good kind of interactions, relationships started building up by these kind of encounters. But what I probably I'm probably more like 7 days there and shoot as much as possible and not hang out a full day with someone else. And then, of course, having quality interactions, but I'm there for shooting and nothing else.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, makes total sense. Yeah, I can imagine it as well. I mean, you can go for like a beer in the evening, of course, but yeah, it's if you go for shooting, then it's not easy with someone there. Some people like it. I'm not really into it that much, but it can be worth it. So, like, do you enjoy? I'm not sure if you've done like photo walks on festivals. Is it something for you that's interesting, or is it more like a social activity then?
Yeah, no, it goes a bit into what I just said. I'm not the photo walk type of
You
guy.
don't join those?
No, I
Okay.
don't. And but that's also something I think about often. Should I be more open to those things? Because I'm pretty sure there is something you take out of these photo walks, good interactions, tips and tricks from other people. So should I do it more? I really don't know. Also, the topic of workshops. I never took a workshop with like an experienced street photographer, well-known name, whatever. And I until today I wasn't super interested in. But to be honest, when I think about that topic, I believe it would be beneficial and I should do it.
Think yeah, it depends. Like for me, I've done workshops and I've done photo walks, and to me, it's interesting because I just enjoy, or like it's for me it's kind of like you start seeing how people work. So for example, like I did a photo walk on the Brussels Street Photography Festival, and we were like a big group. We were like 15 people, I think. um and like some people just, there was I remember a moment where someone was just looking at like a trash can. And to me, it was like, I don't understand what he even can see from it. And then afterwards, I saw the photo. I was like, okay, yeah, this is nice. And then to me, it's kind of like studying someone's work, but studying it live. Like you don't just see the photo and you think like, okay, they've probably done this, used that lens, blah, 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 blah. It's, that's how they did it. Or you see them, the same guy we were in a gallery somewhere, and he just photographed like a plastic bag from someone was holding. And to me, it was like super weird. And he used like flash and was like unsure about if that would even be an interesting photo. And then afterwards, I saw the photo. I was like, okay, yeah, that's actually so it's, to me, sometimes it can work, those photo walks and those workshops. It's kind of like, as you said, like copying someone else, kind of, especially with the workshops. The photo walks are less that way, but especially the workshop with like a well-established photographer is like kind of just copying what they're doing. But then to me, I often struggle for a couple of weeks afterwards, because then I try to do the copying too much, and then it slowly evolves in myself again, and it's added to my way of shooting and style. But so yeah, I see benefit in them, but at the same time, I can totally imagine it's not your vibe or your world. Or
So you also took workshops with like small groups or?
yeah, I've done a few by now. I did like one last month with like a photographer. It's like a small group of Antwerp photographers, so we all knew each other, and just one of them gives workshops, street photography workshops, regularly. So we just like we'll follow one with him, even though we actually kind of know him and he's part of the group. But it's I think we were like 5 or 6 maybe, including the instructor. And it's just very interesting because at that point, for me, it's interesting to see how he gives these workshops as well, but also because it's in the city I live in. Usually it's in a different city, those workshops. It's interesting to know how exactly they look at certain things. And sometimes even like in a city I thought I knew well, sometimes someone spots something like a dirty window or whatever, and you're like, oh, that's interesting that I first of all never saw it before, and also that it's actually a good picture. And sometimes it's a style of picture you don't enjoy, but it can be still valuable. And sometimes like that's exactly how I would do it, and interesting that I never saw it. And so it's yeah. And also to because I'm very shy to the people in my own city, because it feels they're very aware of cameras. But then you go out with someone else and you notice that they're much more spontaneous with it, for example, or that people don't really care, and sometimes it can be interesting as well.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, it depends. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The lesson I took from our conversation today, I need to visit the workshop.
I mean, you can try it, and if it's not your thing, yeah,
I mean, you
that's
just find out when you do it, right? When you
yeah,
try it.
true. And usually I find on like street photography festivals, they're very like affordable.
Yes.
Like especially in Brussels last year, they were very cheap, I found.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, but it's yeah. I mean, and then it's just looking to me. It's interesting because I usually go for photographers in different styles than I am, just because I find it more interesting to learn more from that. Then
Someone completely different.
that's my approach
Yeah.
usually. Yeah, because then often you have to fight your own ideas, kind of, or yeah, like your ideas get challenged, which is interesting, I think. And often you yeah, if you already know everything, then it's not interesting.
Well, who knows everything?
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, if it's like a very similar style, then you might already know how they do it. So, um, let's start wrapping it up there because I'm not sure if you still want to go out today for your photos or not.
I will
Uh,
for sure.
okay, yeah.
The weather is
To,
opening up, so the clouds are moving away and the sun is coming out. So that might be some good
oh, that's great.
conditions.
That's might be interesting to see what you come up to today. So thank you, Michael, for your time and insights. Of course, as always, if anyone wants to follow Michael, I'll put all their links in the description to Instagram, and especially his Substack is very interesting. So I think that's something you should definitely visit and read. Also, make sure to follow the podcast, of course, on your favorite platform, which is probably the platform you're listening on right now. And feel free to share this episode with a friend who would be interested as well. So thank you, Michael.
Thanks to you. It was super interesting conversation and much appreciated.